Well, and even like
Um,
the him falling down the stairs on the fourth one, like that
oh
was
my
like
gosh.
like
That
that
was
was
like,
like
do you remember the never-ending staircase from Super Mario 64
yes, yeah,
where you just kept running and running and running and it
yo,
never ended?
yo,
Um, and I think eventually it does if you keep running. Maybe you have to unlock a certain area
yeah.
or something
It
before it does,
takes a very long time to do it
but
though.
that's how I felt watching that scene. Except he's falling downstairs instead of running up the stairs.
Yeah,
All right, so everybody's favorite, well, I say everybody's favorite stoic action hero, at least of the last 10 years. We're talking about John Wick, of course. This is one that I know you got me to watch. It took a
mm,
little while, but I remember a while ago, and I don't even remember if it was when right after the first one came out, but which was, I think, October 2014. So,
I believe so. Yeah,
um, yeah, I don't know how long ago it was after that, but I know you were talking about it there for a while before I
mm,
decided to see them, and I want to say the second one was out when I saw the first one. So I guess it would have been, let's see,
that's
2017 was when
oh,
the
2017.
yeah, 2017 is when the second one came out. So it's probably either 2017 or 2018 because I remember waiting for 3 to come out to see it. So,
Okay,
um but yeah, this is kind of something we've been wanting to talk about for a while,
yeah,
but uh I guess I'll just preface the discussion by saying this is sort of old school in a lot of ways in terms of action movies. It went back to a really basic plot with a likable protagonist and just some really well shot action sequences of movies that just look really good.
yeah,
And I think maybe a return to a simple formula has definitely boosted the series. But when we came to the conclusion of the series earlier this year, I thought it was, I think we both thought it was a good idea to do an overview of the series and what our thoughts were as people who are big fans of it. So yeah, your first or I guess last impressions of the John Wick. I guess it's a series since it's got four. It
yeah.
can't be a trilogy.
Series,
So
yeah,
yeah.
series. What do I think about it? I think it started off like incredibly good, and then like when it got to like the third and fourth one, that's when it kind of like went downhill a tiny bit for me, but like not by much. It was still really good, but I don't know, that fourth one wasn't a big fan of. But the first, I would say three, love them, especially the first one, fantastic. Like I think just the action in general, like the gunfight scenes and the fact that Keanu like went through training for all this too is like what's crazy about that as well. And so like the action just felt genuinely like realistic, I guess, compared to like other action movies. So I think that's like what made me like really like the movies because that reason alone. It's just like felt like realistic and real and like all this could actually probably happen in real life type deal.
I think it's clear that they obviously put a lot of emphasis and really soul and heart into the action sequences. It's like
Mm-hmm.
even if the story doesn't hook people, because I'll admit the first time I saw the first one, I was like, the story's not the greatest. It's overly simple, but they're just fun movies,
Yeah.
and it's the ultimate type of escapism for especially for guys because it's the ultimate guy movie.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I remember liking the second one better than the first one just because I think it had more of a story to it than the first one did. But
Yeah.
um, the more I have watched them over the years, I kind of have a soft spot for all of them to some degree or another.
Yeah.
We'll get into talking about the fourth one here in a little bit because I know we really haven't had a ton of discussion on it since we saw it.
No.
Uh, but yeah, I think the reason it's done so well, and I was actually going to pull up some numbers here because it's interesting to see, in today's time, you look at the box office numbers for say a Marvel movie, you look at um, the budgets and everything, and it's always, this number here, this 100,000 is cheap by Marvel standards. And
Yeah.
so if you look at the what these films grossed in comparison to what they were made off of, it's pretty spectacular because I mean, your first one, 87 million, it was on a budget of 30 million. The second one, $40 million budget, um, and
171.
171 million. So it's like you see it as the films go on, they just continue to gross more and more and more until you get to the last
Yeah.
one, which obviously did really well. It just shows that this series just gained steam the longer it went,
Mhm.
and I think it's because people were sort of itching for a return to a simpler formula, and just
Mm.
a lot of things are just so convoluted. We're preached to way too much with politics and things like that. That I think people were just like, "Hey, give me something that can turn my brain off for 2 hours."
Yeah.
And
Just
I
watch
think
someone kill
that's
people, and that's literally all it is. Like, I mean,
in very creative ways.
yeah.
And I will say, for those out there who may not have seen it, it's not for the kids.
No.
So this one is it's it's not overly gory, but it is
Mhm.
brutal in the action.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, a
I
lot of the
think
kills and stuff are pretty gruesome, I would say. Not, like, gruesome, but, like, just I don't know, it just makes you, like, kinda, like, flinch a little bit. You're like, "Oh,
yeah,
crap, that just
cringe
happened."
sometimes, but
Yeah.
and then the first one has a good bit of, I'd say, F words and stuff in it, but what
Yeah.
I kinda liked about them is the longer they went, the less talking there is, the longer you go. But, especially by John Wick's character, he's just or Keanu Reeves' character, and it's like, I thought that's kinda funny how it's like, well, we're gonna do less dialogue and more action the further these go.
Yeah, so I literally watched John Wick 4 today, actually, beforehand, because I just wanted to have, like, a fresh mind on that one, just because I probably talk about it the most, I feel like. And, like, watching it, like, a lot of his lines are just, like, simple, like, he's like, "Yeah," and then, like, that's all
Yeah.
he says, and you're just like, "Oh, okay, well."
But it's the fact that he's, like, the perfect actor to play that character. I
Yeah.
mean, if
Oh,
you were
yeah.
to try to put your finger on another actor that could play it the way he did, it'd be hard to, and it's mainly because he basically created the character. I mean, I know he didn't
Mhm.
actually create the character, but he made it what it is, and so
Yeah.
I think that's just as important. And there's some actors who really are more one dimensional on what they can play, and I think that's kinda how Keanu Reeves has always been. But
Mhm.
when he can get into something like this or like The Matrix or something where he can really shine, it's like, that's what I love about these movies is his character is just there's not much to him, but it's the manner in which he plays him is just
Mhm.
is his physicality and stuff is just really it
Yeah.
really shows, and the fact that he's doing all the choreography and stuff himself is really impressive.
Yeah, I agree. Well, again, like, yeah, especially, like, watching, like, the training videos that he did. Like, I mean, like, all that, like, most of his stunts were obviously him doing it, involving, like, the guns and stuff. And I think he did a lot of, like, the fist fights and stuff like that as
Mhm.
well. So, I mean, like, yeah, I don't know, it's just kinda cool, like, watching those videos, like, behind the scenes kind of, like, what he was going through to be able to play this role. And the fact that he's, like, that good at it too, like, in real life, like, shooting targets and stuff, like, he is very accurate of a person. That's just, like, wild to me.
Yeah, he's kind of a and he supposedly he's, like, the nicest person in the world. From
Yes.
what I've heard about him, he's just, like, a good guy, and so that just makes him more likable to
Yeah.
me. So, I think and I like how they sorta sprinkle in, these different actors that and sometimes not actors. Like, one of my favorite scenes is in John Wick 3 where, Boban Marjanovic, he was
Oh, yeah, Boban.
he
Yeah.
plays in the he was with the Pistons, I think, at the time, or maybe
Oh,
the Sixers, but yeah, it plays in the NBA, he's a center.
mm,
He's like 7'6"
3
or
or something
something
like that,
crazy
or
like
4,
that,
yeah.
yeah. But he plays one of the assassins in
Mhm.
John Wick 3, which is one of the funniest scenes to me. and
Yeah.
also just one of the coolest because they actually you could see both of them actually did the choreography for that.
Mhm.
So, just fun stuff like that. I know Common, who's a pretty famous actor, is a pretty big player in a few scenes in the second movie.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, and I
you
think
know,
Common
just
actually I like Common's, character in the second one actually too. It's just kinda
yeah.
like okay, I feel like he was probably like him and, what are this guy's names, bro? The 2 Asian guys that he fights in the second one as well at the end of it. I can't remember their names, but I feel like they were the 2 that probably gave him probably the toughest fight, I think, in my
Well,
opinion.
there's the guy with the sword at the end of the third one that's just that he has to that they're in the fortress, the Continental,
Oh,
and he's
yes.
fighting him in the room with all the glass walls and stuff, and it's like
Mhm.
that's probably the other guy that was really, gave him a run for
Run for his money.
sure.
Yeah, no, I agree with
Yeah,
that, yeah.
but
But
yeah, let's get into let's walk through these a little bit and give our thoughts on which ones we like more than others and why. And I guess we'll just kind of we'll go through them one by one, and then we'll just sort of give our ranking at the end of that. And yeah, let's talk about one. Let's talk about John Wick, the first the 2014 inaugural movie in the series. What what do you feel like with this one? What was it about this movie that really just grabbed people?
Uh, I think for me was that first club scene, like the first like shootout and like basically big, I would say like shootout scene and like fighting scene. I think it's kind of like what for me at least that's what drew me in like big time because like seeing that, it just like I was mesmerized. Like it was just so good and like the choreographic graphic. God, I can't even talk. It was great. I'm just not even say that word anymore. But I just thought that was really good. And yeah, just like in general, that scene was just very good. The music in the background, I really like. It's just kind of like club music and stuff. But like just hearing the club music go through while he's just absolutely just slaughtering people
Yeah.
was just fantastic. And yeah, I think that's what for me at least what drew me in big time was after seeing that scene, I was just amazed. Thought it was great.
I the more I watch the first one, the thing that I love the most about it, and I think it does this as good as any of the movies do,
Mm,
is just how anytime he comes out of retirement because the guy that's the son of the I don't know if it's
the
considered
Russian
mafia
mafia,
or what
kind
it's
of.
not
Yeah,
mafia, but it's the Russian guys.
yeah.
Um, he breaks into his house, kills the dog that his late wife left for him, steals his car, and to me, what is maybe the best part of that movie is every time someone's like, "What's the big deal about the car?" And he's like, "Oh, but it's John Wick's car," and they're like, "Oh," because like everybody knows
Yeah.
who he is. He has that reputation, and so what I love about that movie is, um, just the mythology around John Wick's and who he
Mm,
is, and, like, everybody fears him because he's the
Baba Yaga.
like they say in that movie, the Russian guy says he's not the boogeyman, he's the one that they send to kill the boogeyman,
Again, yeah.
and
That's
so
like
it's
such a
like
great line, I feel like.
yeah,
Like,
so
nothing
there's
gets you, like, more, like, I feel like pumped for movies than that right there, though, like,
yeah.
when they say that, you're like, "Oh, crap, we're in for a great time."
Yeah.
So
It's I think that's what's gotten me to appreciate the first one a lot more is because it really sets up his character and sort of the mythos around it, where it's just
mm,
like, you know, he's almost more than a man. He's sorta, this mythical figure in their world, and so
yeah.
that's what I love about that one and just the way he's just on a complete rampage over a dog in a car the whole time. It's
Mhm.
just like
Yeah.
it's simple, but it's pretty great.
Well, see, I think that's why I, like, enjoyed this series as well. I feel like the plot's just kinda it's not, like, hard to, like, understand. It's just, like, it's
Mm-mm.
easy to follow, it's simple. It's not, like, over the top action, like, I mean, 3rd and 4th kinda we get to the borderline over the top action, I feel like,
Yeah.
and then maybe a little bit over it, but not much. Not like Fast and Furious,
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that.
That's a whole 'nother video.
Yeah, but, yeah, I don't know, I just like the simpleness of it almost in a way. It's just, like, it's easy to follow, and it's just I don't know. yeah, you can like kind of shut your brain off, like you said earlier, and just watch the movie type deal. That's another reason why I think like also for like the first one for me is why I like that one probably the most, in my opinion, was I think more or less like I like the fact that John Wick almost like shows more emotion in a way in the first one. Like the other ones, it kind of just like feels like he's kind of like an emotionless like
He's trying to
just
get out at
person.
that point,
Yeah.
so it's not personal, it's just like
Hmm.
well, it becomes personal eventually, but,
Yes.
he's just like, "I'm just trying to escape and get out of here from,
Hmm.
with my life still intact."
Yep. So.
But, yeah, I think, it's interesting that, you know, they don't reveal a lot about the organization in the first one, and this is what I love about the series as a whole, is it's really it's I think where it excels is its world building, and it does it all in very practical and, easy to follow ways,
Hmm.
where when you get into the second, movie, you he's gotten revenge on this guy for killing his dog, for taking his car. He's out. He's back to retirement, and then this is why, in my opinion, the second one's got the best story to it because in this one we learn about the markers, which are these things that you can take out a marker, and it basically means someone does a favor for you, and so for those who haven't seen it, someone does a favor for you, and it's sealed in blood. So they stick their finger on the needle and they press it on there, and it's a little circular thing that closes. And they stick their fingerprint in there, and that means I've done my favor, and now I'm going to hold this marker until I need a favor from you.
Hmm.
And then you can't. That marker is not cleared until you do the favor and you put your fingerprint on there. And so this guy shows up and he's like, "Hey, I helped you to get out of the organization years ago, and now I'm calling on you to fulfill this marker to go basically assassinate my sister so that I can be on this what we learn is the high table, which is the basically the people that govern the assassins guild that he used to be a part of.
Hmm.
Um so what I love about that is he's in the first one he chooses to go back in. In the
Hmm.
second one he's forced back in.
Yep.
And so it's kind of um you get this sort of palpable understanding of once you get in, getting out is nearly impossible.
Mm.
And so he finds out, I went back in for personal reasons in the first one, but it ended up dragging me back into everything. And so what I love about that is there's sort of two storylines going on. It's like he's going to fulfill this marker, but then he's like, "Oh, I'm going to fulfill this marker and then I'm going to come find you and kill you for dragging me back into this again." So
Yeah.
I don't know. I like that dynamic. It's got some really really good action sequences, especially the one in I don't remember where he's at, but somewhere in the Middle East, I think, where they're in that sort of uh the ruins, that where this party's happening.
Oh, the part, yeah, where he
Yeah,
murders
where
sister.
he goes to find the guy's sister to
Yeah.
kill her, and then he gets in the fight with Common right after that.
Hmm.
Common's character at the end, and that whole sequence of in those tunnels and stuff
Yeah.
is really really cool. And
Yeah, I agree with that. That was probably, I think, honestly, yeah, I think that was probably like my second to maybe third favorite like action scene probably in the series. Like that was very well thought of. Like scene, I would say, like entire sequence, like whole like him hiding the weapons and stuff in the tunnels for when he like runs out of ammo or needs to get into close combat with like a shotgun or something. Like I thought that was really cool. Him like obviously planning out almost felt like an assassination, like one of his like missions he was going on before we actually knew who he was, which is kind of
yeah,
cool.
well, and it's too you get like you said, you get the ending of that movie to me is probably the best ending because it's like he understands. Spoiler alert for people who haven't seen it. You probably shouldn't be watching this if you haven't.
No.
Um, we understand you go to there's certain safe spaces basically. These hotels or these establishments that are run by the uh the organization, and gosh darn it, help me remember the name of the organization. Um
Oh, so New York was called the Continental. I know. What
Yeah, but there's
was
a name that they say this is a so and
uh,
so owned or run establishment, so you can't. But yeah, if you want to look it up for us, it's my
yeah, I'm
mind's
about to
blanking on it right now.
yeah, no, I'm blanking on it too.
But he understands when they go in there that that's a safe zone. There's not supposed to be any killing. We see that in the first movie when I think it's the first one where the girl comes to assassinate him in the
Called the
hotel.
high table, by the way.
Yeah.
There's yeah, called the high table. I thought it was something else though, because like I know they obviously mention that the high table a lot in the movies, but like for some reason I always thought it was something different though. But
There's
yeah,
another term they use, and I cannot remember it to save my life, but it might be it's a
but
guild run establishment or something. Um,
yeah.
but like we understand from the first movie, the girl comes to assassinate him, or maybe it might even be early in the second one in the hotel. And what happens to
Uh,
her? She ends up getting
that
killed
was in
by
the
the
first one, I think actually.
yeah. It runs together.
Yeah, that was the first one because
Yeah,
it was the end of the first one. Yeah.
yeah. So she gets killed because she violates the rules, and so at the end of the second one, he chases this guy down who's dragged him back in, and they're sitting there talking, and the guy's gloating at him, saying you can't kill me, and then he just blows his brains out basically, and he's like, which is starts the whole plot for the third movie. The
Yeah,
whole third movie is just the ramifications of the end of the second one. So
I would say a little bit of the fourth one too, to be honest. Kind of like leads into the fourth one in a way.
yeah, they're kind of all interconnected in that
Yeah.
sense. But yeah, I don't know. I think the ending of the second one's probably the best one because you just get an idea of who John Wick is, where it's like I'm gonna accomplish what I came here to do regardless.
Hmm.
And I don't know, I love the character development there and how you see his relationship with Winston and how he's like, okay, normally I would just kill you on the spot for breaking this rule, but because we're friends, I'm gonna give you an hour to
Hmm.
get out of the city, basically. And that's a good segue into the third one because the third one picks up literally right where the second one ends.
Yep.
And the third one is legitimately just an
Straight
all
action.
out what they call open contract on John Wick, and he's just having to escape from these like hundreds of these assassins. And if I had to put my finger on the one that if I just have to sit down and enjoy action sequences of any of the four, three is my favorite
Yeah.
because some of the action set pieces in that movie are like legitimately jaw dropping to watch.
Yeah. No, I can agree with that.
And
Well, and, like
it's
the action scenes were like very long sequences as well. Like the entire like first like it felt like probably 30 minutes of the movie was just straight nonstop fighting almost.
yeah.
So but yeah, I agree. I think they probably had like some of the best like fight scenes. I think hand to hand combat like scenes. I think for me because like especially that very beginning, it was just mostly all hand to hand almost for the most part.
I'd love to see that director do and those choreographers do some different kinds of get a hold of some different kinds of action movies because I
Mhm.
feel like could you imagine those guys doing like a James Bond movie or
Oh
something?
yeah, for sure.
That would
I feel
be
like
really cool.
yeah,
Uh,
especially yeah, I agree with that.
or even getting a hold of even though the Mission Impossible movies do really good stunts, and everything, it would be really neat to see some of those guys working on something like that.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think that's what really draws me into a lot of these is just the choreographers, the stunt guys, the guys who just think up all these sort of outlandish scenarios, but ones where you're like, it plays with the vibe of the movie though. These flashing lights and these
Hmm.
club scenes and these people dancing while he's killing people and like not even paying attention the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just that the atmosphere they create is really unique and
Mhm.
it's just kind of fun. And
Yeah.
I think the third one embodies the fun more than any of them. That's the two scenes I always think of is the one where he's riding the horse through New York City,
Mhm.
and he's in the knife shop and he's fighting the guys.
He just keeps grabbing knife
Yeah,
after knife,
yeah.
just throwing them at people.
And then the one that's probably my favorite is the one where he goes to the Middle East and it's Halle Berry's character and she has the two
Oh,
dogs.
yeah.
That
That was
is
a very cool
impressive
scene. Yeah, that was
how
very
they
cool scene.
they did that. And so I just have fun watching that movie. Like, if I had to
Yep.
pop in any action movie to watch just for the the fun of it, it'd be John Wick 3 probably.
No, I can agree with that for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, that's basically the plot of the 3rd one. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just there's not much. He's just trying to basically find a way to get the open contract rescinded from him, and there's elaborate ways he has to go about doing that. He has to cut off a finger and all that crazy
Yeah.
stuff, and it's kind of weird, but,
Well, I think that's kind of like the third one again. Like, kind of, it's like what jump started the whole like kind of starting to get to be over the top action almost in a way as well, like borderline of it, and not like in a bad way. I would say
yeah,
like it's kind of like in the middle. I think it's like good and also can be borderline bad, but all around better. But like also like I guess the ending to it though too as well, like where he falls from a what even like it was 13 floors or something like that probably.
long way yeah, a long way down.
Yeah, and falls from that, hits his I don't even know, probably his head on the guardrail of a fire escape, and then hits a dumpster or something like that.
Yeah,
Like I don't know how he lived from that, but
because
kudos to
he's not
him.
human, apparently.
Yeah, apparently not. But
It's
like
not
first
as
of all,
bad as the one scene in the 4th one where he gets launched out the window and, like, hits I think he
where did he
falls
get
even
launched at?
further than he did in the 3rd one, and he, like it's the one where they're in that it's the one they showed the aerial view, and he's fighting the guys with the dragon's
Oh
breath,
yeah, yes,
shotgun,
yes, yeah.
uh,
Oh, and he jumps out the window.
and
Yeah,
he hits, like, a bunch of different things on the way down, like, hits his
yeah.
head on the van and, like, spins and hits the pavement,
Hmm.
and then he just, like, gets up and walks off, and I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah. Well, and even like
Um,
the him falling down the stairs on the fourth one, like that
oh
was
my
like
gosh.
like
That
that
was
was like
like do you remember the never-ending staircase from Super Mario 64
yes, yes,
where you just kept running and running and running and it
yo,
never ended?
yo.
Um, and I think eventually it does if you keep running. Maybe you have to unlock a certain area
Yeah,
or something
it
before it does,
takes a very long time to do it
but
though.
that's how I felt watching that scene, except he's falling downstairs instead of running up the stairs.
Yeah.
And because I think it's nearly a 3-hour movie,
Yeah, it's like 2 hours and
and
like 50 minutes, I think,
yeah.
because I started at like 3 and it got done at like 6 for me or something like that,
Yeah.
so
So me and a friend, it was actually we call him the Samartian now because he got his name wrong, but he's been on here with us talking a few
some more
different subjects. But me and him went and watched it when it came out, and he I remember the scene where the staircase scene at the very end of the movie. It's like um He's because like you said, it's those continuous action sequences, and the 4th one's the worst about that because they'll run
Mhm.
up there were some action sequences where they'd run for, like, 30 or 40 minutes straight,
Yeah.
and it's like he does all this work, he's fighting these guys off, it takes him forever to get halfway up, and then he gets knocked all the way down, and then he to the bottom of the steps, he rolls all the way down,
Mhm.
and then he gets up, makes it almost all the way to the top, and then gets knocked down again, and I was like,
Yeah.
"You are kidding me."
Yeah, just kinda like to me at least, kinda just like felt like they were dragging it on to like make the movie like drag on. I don't know how to
The
explain it,
movie
just
is probably 45 to 50 minutes longer than it needed to be.
yeah, I can agree with that.
Um, and that's I mean, we're kinda already talking about it, but, like, the 4th one, going into it, I was excited because I think we all knew it was gonna be most likely the finale. I don't think they had confirmed that, but I think
No,
everybody.
so I think they also did I saw something that it said it was confirmed they're making a 5th one.
Yeah, I've heard different rumors about that. I know there's a spinoff they're doing called Ballerina.
Arena, yep, and then they got the
Um,
Continental, obviously, which is a prequel, but
yeah, I haven't seen any of the Continental. I don't.
yeah, so it
Um,
says right here, now that John Wick 5 is confirmed to be in development, here's everything so far about Keanu Reeves' next action-packed venture to the titular hero and one-man army. So, it says here that it's been confirmed, apparently, they're making a 5th one.
I wonder if they're like. I bet you what they're gonna do. Because spoiler to everyone, turn your ears off now. At the end of 4, John Wick supposedly dies,
Yeah,
and
bleeds
so
out on a staircase,
I
so
bet. Yeah, yeah, the staircase won in the end.
mhm.
Um, the uh, plot twist: the staircase was his biggest enemy. Uh,
I
uh,
never thought about that, to be honest.
I mean, He took a beating, man, twice. That thing was slinging him around like he's in a
Yeah.
WWE match or something.
Oh, big time,
Um,
yeah.
but it's I would imagine what they're gonna do to speculate is they're gonna just basically say they faked his death so that he could, go into
Mhm.
retirement peacefully or whatever.
And then
Because
somehow he's gonna get
like they
dragged
say,
back into it.
yeah, you don't ever assume someone you don't confirm or believe someone's dead till you see the body, right?
Mm.
That's what they
Yeah.
tell you, and so conveniently at the end of the movie, they show him kinda lay down on the steps, and then it kinda goes away, and then they show,
Mhm.
like, his graveside, and I'm like, you didn't
Yeah,
see it."
I think a lot of
Yeah,
people saw that probably from, like, a mile away, though. I mean,
yeah,
like, it's just movie knowledge. If you don't see the person actually dead, then half the time they're
yeah.
alive still,
I mean, I'm
so
here for it, let's do another one.
I mean, screw it, yeah. I mean, it's gonna be if they do, like, another whole 4 movies or something, then that's gonna be pushing it, I think, though, because like,
You know what they
I don't
should do, though? If
what?
depending on I don't think they really say what the gap is between when he retired and when he came back for the first movie happened,
Mm,
but what they should do is do some prequel movies
mm,
with him leading up to when he retires.
yeah. I could get down for that, honestly. See, like,
And you
some of
could
his, like,
do a
missions.
whole trilogy, and the last one being about the guy helping him get out and meeting
Mhm.
his wife and everything. Sort of a love story aspect there. I think it'd be really good.
Yeah, I mean, I
Do it while he's not too old to do it, and he
mhm.
could pull it off playing a younger John Wick. So
Yeah, I'd actually be down for that, to be honest. Just kinda see, like, what kinda, like, missions he went on when he was, like,
yeah.
younger and stuff, and, like, kinda, like, what, like, solidified him as the, boogeyman killer, pretty much, you know?
Or they could just cast a younger actor, which I really wouldn't want them to,
Uh, I
but
mean, in today's age, like, CGI is, like, such a big thing, like, they could easily or visual effects, like, they could easily, like, make him look a little younger if they wanted to.
yeah. But I think with 4, I think my biggest issues with 4 were and this is what I told the Samartian. I was like, um, I feel like the action sequences were so long that I got bored of the action, if that makes sense. It was
Mhm,
just like action for the sake of action. And so you got to the point where it was like, okay, we've been doing this for 30 minutes. I
mm.
forgot what he was doing in this scene or what he was trying to accomplish.
Yeah,
And so there were so many of those that were just so drawn out. It was like they just wanted to string out these action sequences as long as possible.
yeah. Well, and I think, like, especially, like, the last, like, action, like, sequence, I think was, like it had to have been at least 45 minutes long, maybe even longer. Because like, I'm pretty sure because I swear I think I remember getting into, like, the end of the movie today, and it felt like that action scene at the very end was just taking forever to get done. So I think it at least, like, was about 45 minutes, just,
Yeah.
like, straight just
Mhm.
action, which I mean is cool and all, but, like, I don't know, some things do it well, some places don't, I guess. 'Cause, like, I don't know if you ever watched, Extraction?
I have not, but I've
Oh,
heard good things about it. I've been wanting
gotta watch
I don't
it.
have a Netflix access, so I don't.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, if you ever get Netflix or access, you gotta watch Extraction because it, like, reminds me a lot of John Wick, like, its action sequence and all that. What's cool about at least the second one, there's a 13-minute long one-shot action scene that is just phenomenal. It was so good. And, like,
Wow.
I think, like, certain, like, directors and producers and all that do a good job with, like, having, like, long action sequences, but this one, like, the 4th one just was too much.
You also have to have like, in the case of Extraction, a guy like Chris Hemsworth can really play an action star. He's got the physique and the physicality to do it, and I think that's important in any movie to and then, I mean, if you look back to, like, the '80s action movies, you had your Stallones and your
Mhm,
Schwarzeneggers and your Jean-Claude Van Dammes and your Dolph Lundgrens and all those guys. Your even later than that, you had your Chuck Norris and people like that. So I think all those guys had sort of physical traits that
mhm.
really propelled them. I mean, your Bruce Lees, your Jackie Chans.
I mean, even
It's
to, like,
just
Jason Statham, like, early
yeah,
2000s, I would
yeah.
say, like, mid
Jason
2000s.
Statham's a more modern one that's really got that. I mean, even guys like The Rock, who in a lot of the
Mhm.
Fast and Furious movies, him and Vin
Yeah.
Diesel,
Vin
they
Diesel,
you
yeah.
you may you can say what you want about some of that over the top stuff in nature, but those guys, when they get in those action sequences and they're fighting people, it's like I could watch 2 hours of this. I
Oh, yeah,
mean,
for sure.
it's just that they bring that physique and the just that toughness, the physicality
Mhm.
that you have to have, and I think that's what helps. And I think maybe with 4, that's why, it didn't stick with me as much. The villain is just like he's less of a villain and more of like a figurehead for a villain because he's not
Mhm.
ever a threat in a sense uh, to John Wick in a physical
No.
manner as some of the ones were in the previous movies. So,
Mhm.
um,
I will say though, like the ending though, to like how he died was actually pretty great. I enjoyed that a lot because it kind of reminded me of the second one
yes,
in a way, like for
yes,
how he did it, and like I don't know, just the whole like catching him off guard, not realizing that he shot his gun yet, and he just gets his head blown in.
yeah.
It
No,
just
I did like that. I did
yeah,
like the way they did it. I just don't think it wasn't the same as like, which I guess if you think back on the other 3 movies, there's not really ever a time where he just fights a guy on the same physicality level, at least one of the main villains. Uh,
yeah,
because the main
yeah,
villain in the
probably so.
3rd one is like, is the high table. So it's not he
Yeah,
fights the one samurai guy, but he's
yeah,
not
the Asian dude.
really.
It's like obsessed
Yeah,
with him, I think, or something like that,
yeah.
right? I think it's third one. Yeah, third one. Yeah.
And then the
Yeah, I
second
agree with that.
one, I mean, the second one he fights Common, which is probably the best. But Common's not even the main villain in the
Mm,
movie. The guy that's the main villain's really like he can't really stand up to him. Same in the first
no.
one too. So
I feel like probably the first one that was honestly probably like toughest, like actual like main like bad guy to actually could have like maybe give him a little bit of a fight.
yeah.
Like the other ones didn't really at all because like they weren't like actual like physical.
But
But I feel like
I think that's part of what they do that intentionally because John Wick is supposed to be sort of superior to everybody,
hmm
and so there's really no one that can best him, and even the ones that are bigger than him, he's just got uh more fighting skills. He knows more
yeah,
hand to hand combat stuff or martial arts or whatever. So, you know, guns, knives, whatever. But I think that's part of it. And
hmm
I think really where 4 falls a little bit more flat than the others is those overlong action sequences. The story is just kind of unnecessarily confusing because the whole thing, he's like, I'm taking down the high table. And I'm like, ooh, this is going to be
yeah,
really good. And at
yeah,
the end of the movie, he doesn't take down the high table. And so
no,
it's like it feels very unfinished and like they don't really deliver on what they promised from the plot.
yeah,
And so I would love like if they do a 5, it should be about that. And it should be
hmm
about okay, the high table's after me, and this time I really have to tear the whole thing down.
yeah.
And
I
that would
agree with that.
actually be a really fun movie. Um but I think the third thing in terms of the combat itself is how John Wick's the only one in the other movies that has like his bulletproof suit, and in
Ugh,
the fourth one, everybody has it. And so he'll shoot a guy 6 times in the chest, and the guy
mm,
just gets back up and comes after him. And I'm like, if you've unloaded an entire clip on a guy, he should be dead.
yeah,
And so I think there's a lot of times where he'll shoot the same guy 12 times and he's still alive. And I'm
hmm
like, okay, this is getting a little ridiculous at this point.
yeah.
But
Well, I think like another like point, I guess, like with the whole like when was it when he went to Tokyo and the Continental, I can't remember what that one's called.
okay,
Osaka, I think.
yeah, something like that.
Osaka, something like that. I think it's Osaka. But whenever they get raided by Marquis, I think his name was, his group or whatever.
The marquee, yeah.
Yeah. When they started like attacking and all that, and so John Wick gets into like that kind of like almost like a museum type like area in that hotel, and he grabs the nunchucks, and these guys have full on body armor suits on.
Yeah.
I thought that was a little ridiculous. I'm just like, I don't think a nunchuck would really do a whole lot of
4 is
damage to
where
the
it
guy.
got really over the top with the action,
Yeah.
where it's like it was overly embellished to the point
Hmm.
where what's the most ridiculous thing he can have right now? Nunchucks? Okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
And
And
so,
again, going against like guys with full on body armor that is bulletproof, and you're
yeah,
telling me a piece of wood is doing more damage than a bullet would?
that's
Like,
yeah, and that's why to me the
I don't
one
know.
scene where he's got the dragon's breath shotgun is probably the
Oh
best
yeah,
action scene in the movie because
yeah,
he's actually just like obliterating people.
yeah. And like I
And
like the whole like upper
yeah,
view of it too, though. It's
yeah,
just like above him, and you're watching it happen. That was actually a really
yeah,
cool like sequence that they
yeah.
did, and I applaud them for that. That was a great thing that they did there. Another thing actually I found like kind of like annoying, I guess, like at the very beginning when he's in the desert, chasing the guys, he's just in his black suit with a black horse as well, and it was just like I don't know, kind of like just like weird because it's just like these guys are in white suit or like white, I don't know, drapes, whatever you want to call them,
A lot of
and white
symbolism
horses.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like okay, and then like he gets basically kills all of them. He gets to the high, what is it, the High Elder, I think he was called.
The man above the high table, I can't remember what he was called.
Yeah, I think it's called the High Elder maybe, but like they didn't really do a good job at like explaining like who he was at first. Like they said he was the High Elder, which was cool and all, but it was also like put two and two together. It was kind of like confusing at first to like realize like who he actually was. I guess in a way. I don't know. I just feel like that like scene was
Yeah.
just like it was kind of just like it just felt random. I guess in a way, it didn't feel like it like made the plot go forward, or it just didn't do anything for the plot at all. Really.
I think that's what I was getting at earlier with just the story being they tell you one thing in the trailers and stuff, and then when you get even at the beginning of the movie, they're like, "Oh, he's going after the high table," and then the whole
Hmm.
entire movie has really not much to do with that. It has to do with
Hmm.
this marquee guy and how he's you know having to basically instead of taking down the whole high table. Sorry, I'll edit that. He has to just beat this guy in a duel, and then he's back in good graces. So
Hmm.
I think it just felt it sort of cheapened the story to me. Um, it didn't deliver on what they promised in a lot of the trailers. So if they do a fifth one, that's what I hope they do. Because I think if they had done that, it would have made for a lot better movie, and it's probably one they could have stretched out for 3 hours because they would have
Hmm.
had to find every single one of the high table and take them out.
Yeah.
And you could have had a lot of different elaborate set pieces that would have been really cool. Um, Different locations across the world he would have had to go to. Not
Hmm.
that they haven't done that, what they have, but I don't know. I think it was just a missed opportunity.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I mean, I think it would have been like cool to like have it like kind of like I don't know if you ever played the Hitman games at all. I feel like you probably
I
haven't,
have
or if you heard
seen
of them.
gameplay, but I have not actually sat down and played any of them
Okay,
myself.
I know like the newest like Hitmans, you kind of go like across the country and do like assassination and stuff like that. Assassinate people. I think like if they would have done something like that, that would have been kind of cool. Like if you went to like Rome or something like that, and like had to like set up like to assassinate like one of the high end table people, and then like go to wherever else, it's like another country. Just go around each like, wherever and just setting up like how like kind of like he probably would have been doing like when he was younger, kind of in his glory days of
Yeah, yeah,
being an assassin. I think that would have been kind of cool to see. But
yeah. I think it would have. Uh, I guess that brings us to where we would rate all of these. Um, and I guess I'll let you go first and give your 1 through 4. I guess go worst to best. I guess is how we'll
first best.
start. And
Okay. So I'm literally just going to go in a line from the fourth, third, second one. Like I think that's my exact rotation, which ones I like them the most, and from worst to best. I mean, fourth one's probably the worst one. I think the story and plot was just not that great. The action was cool, but it dragged along. Obviously, made it kind of boring. Third one, story was good. I wouldn't say it was bad, but it wasn't like
there's
anything
not
like
much of a
crazy.
story. Yeah,
No, no, not at all. So like that's why it wasn't like anything crazy, but it also wasn't bad, I guess. The sequences though, I would say yeah, the action is probably some of the best we've seen in the series, I would say. Um Second one, like you kind of said, the plot was probably the best, and I kind of agree with that as well. I think the plot was probably it actually made sense, and like I don't know, it just like went through the entire movie where you could like kind of understand what was going on, and the plot just made sense. The first one, I think, it's just I don't know, something about it was like
it's
I think it's
iconic.
maybe yeah, iconic, I guess. It's just like it's like what brought me into like the series. So I think that's always going to be like my biased take is that first one is probably the best one for that reason. But
Fair
yeah,
enough.
and I think like also again like there's the emotion factor to it because like he just lost his wife. They just killed his dog that his wife got him for when she, after she passed, and it just like it felt like more emotion. He didn't feel like an emotionless like just empty person almost. So like in the other ones, I just feel like he's just not doesn't show any emotion really. He's just kind of like there, and so I think that's the only reason why I like the first one a lot because they actually had more emotion with the character.
Yeah, and mine's gonna be slightly different, but mostly the same. I don't know. I kind of 4 is my least favorite, just for basically the same reasons we just talked about. Um, and then from there, it's really hard because I view the first 3 all. I like them all for different reasons,
Hmm.
and so Um, if I chose, like I said, if I chose one to just sit down and watch purely for action sequences, it would be 3 every time.
Hmm.
And just because they have the most fun action sequences to me.
Yep.
Um, but I would probably still have 3 as right behind 4 just because it's hard. First 3 are almost in a lot of ways a tie for me. But I would probably have 3 after 4 in the 3rd spot, and then I would probably put 1 as my second favorite. It's close, but like I said, I think the one thing that really gets 2 for me is 2 has the best combination of story and action sequences of any of the movies. I think it's the most cohesive in that regard.
Hmm.
Um, and so I usually lean towards 2 as being my favorite.
Okay.
But what I love about 1 is just the building up of John Wick's character and, like, sort of the
Hmm.
palpable fear that everybody has of him, and just the way that they set that up is really hilarious and
Yep.
just fitting, and it's the first one, it's the one that launched it all, so I'd say I can almost interchange those first 3,
Okay.
and I don't know, that's probably where I stand with it, to be honest.
Okay. I also feel like that's a really a hot take either. I mean, I feel like that's a pretty good take, honestly. I think a lot of people would probably agree with that as well.